Hello everyone, this is part 6 of What If Naruto Was Female Orochimaru's Target, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Her body felt heavy, every muscle felt strained, and even the idea of moving caused her pain. Her sheets were soaked through, but she was freezing, and the splitting headache caused a ringing in her ears. None of that compared to what she saw in her sleep. For years, Anko hated no one more than she hated her sensei. She detested everything about the woman, the embodiment of everything evil about their world. Now, she simply wanted to kill herself as the 2 years of missing memory returned. She was there, by her side, taking part in the experiments, the torture, and the needless bloodletting. If Orochimaru told her to burn down a village, Anko would do it because her sensei told her to. It was just that simply, her obedience was just that unthinking, reflexive even. Even when she had misgivings, even when the things she did made her sick, she tried to hide it from Orochimaru. Anko never wanted her to think her apprentice couldn't keep up, didn't have the stomach for what was asked of her. But she did eventually reach her limit. When asked to prepare a small child for an experiment, Anko broke down. She became a quivering mass and struggled to get out apologies in between her sobs. Orochimaru smiled and patted the girl on her head, telling her she didn't have to do it. The next day, Anko received the cursed mark and remembered nothing else until she was found by a Konoha strike team some time later. She hated herself, hated what she did, hated why she did it. A small part of her even hated that her devotion wasn't appreciated but considered a detrimental feature. All she did to please that woman, and she didn't even care. Anko became a monster for a monster and was abandoned because of it. It was distressing how much that realization hurt, that it was all for nothing. That Orochimaru valued someone so unlike her in the red-haired Uzumaki but disdained Anko. It was a sad joke, she was a sad joke, a perfect intersection of tragedy and farce. Not good enough to be her student. Not debased enough to be her disciple. Not even worthy of killing. Just some toy Orochimaru tired of playing with and then abandoned. Throughout her emotional turmoil, she wasn't unaware that someone was in, she assumed, her apartment. She simply was in too much pain to care. Besides, she knew who it was and wanted to prolong the hateful bitch's gloating. Are you going to pretend to be asleep for much longer, Anko-chan? I'd hoped you'd leave if I did, Anko said, forcing herself to sit upright against her headboard. Her bedroom was pretty basic, containing her bed draped in dark purple sheets, a metal and glass top nightstand to her left, and a chest of drawers on the right wall. Orochimaru was sitting at the end of her bed, keeping a keen eye on her former apprentice. So, is this your final joke? Let me hate you for years and then reveal I'm just like you. Anko spat, tired of the woman watching her so intently. If you've gotten your memories back, you know you aren't just like me. You were a little girl trying to please her sensei. I still did those things. Doesn't matter why, I did them. I'm no better than you, and these people had reason to hate and reject me. They knew what I was. If that is who you were, you'd still do those things, but you don't. You didn't become like me, and in that area you bested me. Orochimaru said and meant it. She realized she had taken advantage of Anko's admiration the same way Hiruzen had done to her. It was one of the few things she genuinely felt bad about. What do you mean? Anko asked, not understand what the Sannin meant. Let's just say there is more to Hiruzen Sarutobi than you know, and not all of it is good. Anko wanted to argue but reconsidered and let the matter drop. She was in too much pain for an unnecessary argument. Why did you remove the seal? Because I want to make amends, Anko. The violet-haired woman looked unconvinced. I've been told to make amends, but I agree. You've gone as far as you can with hating me as motivation. You may never forgive me, but seeing as how I'm not going anywhere, I'm hoping you can move on. Anko snorted and then grimaced in pain. She may hate the she-demon, but she was rational enough to admit said demon was right. She hadn't been advancing, and on a purely skill level she was no more closer to killing her former sensei as she was to sprouting wings and granting wishes. It's not like she's never contemplated it before, just moving on with her life, but there was an ache of injustice, scores unsettled that wouldn't allow her to. I can't make any promises. I've hated everything about you for so long, but it seems what you did allowed me to not hate myself. Be thankful for small mercies. I'd be thankful for this pain to end. Did it really have to hurt this much? Yes. Besides, you're strong, you'll manage. Your bedside manner sucks. Kakuku. Orochimaru left soon after. Whatever Anko and her relationship was to be, it'd take time, though she highly doubt it'd ever be more than a resigned acceptance. She could live with that, and Koharu couldn't claim she hadn't an effort. The woman got really, really unpleasant when she believed that. The snake Sanin decided to walk through the village. It was still quite early, the sun just peeking about the horizon. Not many people were out, but those that were seemed conflicted on how to treat her. She could see the fear they had, but there was also a layer of security. The villagers stood a little straighter because the legendary three had returned. If only they understood, she'd never make some grand effort to save a single one of them. Konoha had what she wanted, it remaining standing was the best path to her goals. If that should ever change, this place would burn, and she'd not spare one thought to their suffering. She shook her head when she noticed someone following her, poorly. As she made her way toward the last street before her residence, said tag along finally appeared. A Chunin, going by the vest with stringy, silvery chin-length hair. The mane looked familiar, but she really was drawing a blank. Orochimaru-sama, if we could have a word, the man requested. And what can I do for you today, Chunin-kun? She replied, and saw the man bristle at the question and form a slight sneer. He recovered quickly to most, but to her experienced eyes, he might as well shout his emotions. Mizuki, Orochimaru-sama. Oh, she thought. It was the Chunin fuck-up that couldn't even manage to do what she ordered Hinata to at a fraction of the age. It was a simple observe and report, as she wanted multiple sources on the Uzumaki heir. She knew he'd be easy to manipulate, he wore his insecurities for all to see. Jealous, frustrated, self-entitled. It was nothing to give him a prototype curse seal but withhold the means to activate it. Oh, of course. How could I forget, Mizuki-kun? How may I help you today? Well, your agent said if I helped you I'd one day be granted access to incredible power. Orochimaru had to suppress a sigh. This deeply uninteresting man was wasting her time she could be with Naruto-kun. He wasn't uninteresting, even just sitting and reading she could feel the ideas racing through his head and the palpable excitement at doing something new or finding a way to do an existing skill better. She idly wondered if she just killed this Chunin, how many people would truly miss him. It would certainly be faster than this conversation. She formed a smile, a great show at how to project emotions you decidedly weren't feeling, as she was simply bored by this thing in front of her. Kakuku, I recall ordering you to keep an eye on a certain student. From my other operatives, I was told you were negligent, withholding instruction and other means to subtly sabotage his education. I just thought, Kakuku, I did not order you to think, only obey. How can I reward you when you potentially derail my plans? You failed, and it was due to factors outside of that pathetic academy. You didn't cause any real damage. But he's the QB, he nearly shouted. She actually had to blink at that. Did this fool actually believe he was the QB? Not even civilians believed he was the actual QB. This conversation just got too stupid for her to devote any further attention to. That's idiocy, and even if he were, I ordered you to chart his progress and report to me. You did not, so you get nothing. She replied simply, and Mizuki didn't bother to hide the sneer this time. I know things. I can tell Sandaime-sama how you gave me a cursed seal and told me to spy on the QB brat. Kakuku, and I'll tell him I gave it to you after you suffocated a comrade. Nothing will happen to me and you'll be executed. Which would save me the trouble of doing it myself, so please, Mizuki-kun, go run and tattle. She simply walked away after that, nothing more needed to be said. The Chunin instructor just stood there in silent fury at being dismissed and denied what he was owed. He promised he'd get her back one of these days. Orochimaru continued back to her residence, fully aware the idiot Chunin was likely making plans of revenge. She'd let him try, if for no other reason than the potential entertainment value. One must fend off boredom whenever they can. When she returned, she was not at all surprised to see her student out back. He was in a red shirt with a white spiral on the back, black pants and sandals to match. Him being surrounded by 10 shadow clones, each writing or sketching ideas, was also not unique. However, she assumed, original squinting in frustration or extreme concentration was. She surmised it had to do with the sphere of water above his head. She could see the beads of sweat on his forehead as he held his hands in the ram sign, breathing slowly. His concentration was broken when one clone shouted, "Boss!" to get his attention, causing the condensed water to fall on his head, drenching him. The offending clone dispelled instantly, likely preferring it to more forceful alternative. Stupid clone. Stupid Nadaime. Stupid water manipulation. It couldn't have just been a high water affinity. Outside of primary and secondary, strength of affinities might not even be a thing, to bio. Naruto had, for some time, attempted to recreate the Nadaime's method of water manipulation. He'd progressed to where he could feel the water in the air and even draw some of it to him to shape. It was minimal and taxing. The amount of water obtained for chakra used was highly unfavorable. The science isn't settled on if primary affinities are stronger or weaker in cross comparisons, boss. If they aren't, it may be reflective on other aspects of chakra being measured, not strength of the affinity. One clone spoke. Chakra paper may just be a significance test, telling the elements one's chakra is inclined toward, but the strength of the reaction may mean very little. Especially if the chakra is untrained anyway. If someone can use Fuyutin jutsu, then what may prevent them from using a level of said jutsu isn't due to the strength of the affinity. If you demonstrate a strong wind affinity but have the reserves of a genin, you can't do S-rank jutsu. Reserves and capacity overrule it. Some people have inclinations toward various aspects of chakra, boss, not just elemental affinities. We just don't test for them in any rationalized way. We see people struggle with ninjutsu and say they're a genjutsu type. Exactly, to bio. The Nadaime didn't have a stronger affinity for water. The idea makes no sense. How would you judge it? If we say it's because of how he wielded it in battle, that's improper methodology. The reason is circular. We know the Nadaime had a strong water affinity because he had a strong water affinity. Outside of his method of taking water from the atmosphere, why else is he said to have such a strong affinity? He could do the water dragon jutsu with one hand seal, another clone spoke. Yay, but much of the difficulty of that jutsu is about shape manipulation. We've managed to half the required hand seals after we learned the Rasengan. Another clone added. That's true, it's one of the reasons Doton jutsu tend to have fewer hand seals. The element is inherently more stable, creating a shape out of it is just more straightforward, said an additional clone. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, fellas. Let's go back to first principles. What are the elements to jutsu? The original asked. Nature and shape. The clones chorused. But not just that. One clone said after a moment. What do you mean? Yes, it's nature and shape. That holds true for ninjutsu and genjutsu, but they aren't the same. And it wasn't only the water dragon that got easier after we learned the Rasengan. Our genjutsu got a little more manageable as well. That could just be due to an increase in chakra control, said one of the shadow clones. Yay. Except we weren't only learning the Rasengan around that time. How would the Edo Tensei have? It wouldn't have. It's what we did before then. Yin and Yang. Original Naruto responded with a glint of understanding. We were able to feel, at least a little better, the balance of yin and yang in our jutsu. Ninjutsu tends to favor yang, genjutsu jutsu tends to favor yin. Iryo ninjutsu is likely the most balanced of the two. Maybe that's how. He somehow could use higher concentrations of yang chakra in his Sutan ninjutsu and it improved the conversion rate, making it possible to do high-level jutsu with the water molecules around him. Naruto finished only to hear clapping coming from behind him. The clones turned as well, none realizing they had an audience, too focused on the discussion. They collectively rubbed the back of their heads, sheepishly. Hi, Shushu, they said, and she laughed. Good morning, Naruto-kuns. I see we're making some breakthroughs this morning. She spoke, earning a series of smiles. You know, some say the reason the Shodai was able to wield the Mokuton was not simply because of his affinities for Doton and Suton but also the high concentration of Yang chakra. Some call it the life element. She thought the look of utter amazement in the face of her student to be adorable. Naruto quickly formed a Yang style shadow clone and it began trying to draw water out of the atmosphere. It got splashed immediately and broke into a similar tirade. I hope I'm not interrupting. No, you aren't. They were actually working on a different project before I distracted them. And what are they working on? Maybe I can be of service. Oh, we got to know Hyuga Hinata-san yesterday and apparently she's an archer. How cool is that? Yes, quite cool. Orochimaru said with no enthusiasm at all. Naruto didn't seem to notice. But she only uses plain arrows. When I asked what they could do, she seemed confused. So, we went to dinner last night and exchanged some ideas. I'm just having my clones go over some ceiling arrays. Leave it to an Uzumaki to turn to Fuinjutsu, I suppose. What are some of your ideas? Well, one was a knockout arrow, but instead of a poison or electric shock, I was trying to translate my ninja art, chirp, into an array. I didn't know you'd gotten it down enough to attempt that. Orochimaru asked as she quirked her brow. She'd heard Naruto complain several times about his supersonic chakra technique being near impossible to form into an actual jutsu. The only one he'd managed was a high-pitched sound that caused the target to go unconscious. The jutsu had two issues. 1. It was used in conjunction with his sword, so it couldn't require hand seals. Secondly, he had difficulty limiting the range with any precision. Since he'd seemingly stalled, she hadn't asked about it, but it appeared that the Hyuga heiress provided some inspiration. The white snake didn't like that, not even a little, and made note to visit Hinata. I had some clones perfecting it last night, so I've finally got the control I need. Well done, she said while gentle stroking his cheek, causing him to emit a very low purr. That never happened, Tobio, the rookie Chunin exclaimed in embarrassment. We'll see, but I make no promises. Moving on, there were talks of exploding arrows. Lightning and wind-coated arrows. Arrows that had sound-dampening seals on them so they wouldn't alert the intended target, and even arrows that released a poison fog, but I ran into a complication with that. What complication? Well, I don't actually know what kind of poison the poison mist jutsu releases. And that got me thinking, can it be changed to different kind of poisons? It's really more a gas anyway, so can we create a jutsu to mimic other gases? Imagine, your target is in a locked and poorly ventilated room, so you fill it with a concentration of carbon monoxide. One that dissipates soon after. That is a very good idea. I think I might have to run some experiments myself. I can't let my rival eclipse me so easily, Orochimaru said. Huh? Naruto asked, squinting and leaning his head to the right. You didn't think I'd simply allow you to be known as Konoha's greatest jutsu creator without some competition, did you? But I like this idea. I'll see if I can isolate the properties in that jutsu and we can go from there. I'd suggest you focus on your water manipulation. Any particular reason, Shushu? To stick it to Hiruzen, of course. My student, mimicking one of the crowning achievements of his beloved sensei. Something even the professor hasn't managed. Oh, turning that knife will be MMH, words can't describe. Naruto, having no words of response, went back to work. Shizune was surprised when she entered the Hokage's office to see Genma Shiranui and Rado Namiashi there as well. She bowed to the Hokage and awaited the mission details, as the summons hadn't been terribly specific. She still went home and changed into her Junin uniform instead of the kimono she normally wears outside of missions. Thank you for your prompt arrival, Shizune-chan. As one of the two people familiar with, as well as inoculated from the effects of the Ishvali iris, I thought it time I sent you to begin producing an immunization as well as an weaponized version. Genma and Rado will be there on a separate issue, so once a sample cure and poison are created you may return, of course making sure to give Genma and Rado their shots. If you have no questions and you remember my orders, you are dismissed. The three Junin departed and made their way to the gate. Shizune could see how tense her two temporary squadmates were and thought it best to ask, to clear up any concerns. Genma, Rado, what's wrong? A lot, said the Senbon chewing special Junin. Realizing that answered nothing, he continued after activating a sound-distorting genjutsu. Not everyone in this village is blind, Shizune. Those of us who weren't were ordered to stay away from the kid. Shizune didn't visibly react, having suspected Jiraiya was told something similar. She just waited for them to continue speaking. Sandaime-sama was quite strict in his enforcement of that. We disliked it greatly, Kakashi detested it with his entire being. There were days we were concerned he was going to do something stupid and get himself killed in the process. Rado said. Especially when he wasn't allowed to take the gaki as an apprentice. A lot of trees had a lot of Chidori-shaped holes through them. Genma added. There wasn't a lot we could do for him, not directly, but we did watch out for him. Made sure no one ever attacked him or tried to cheat him. The few times he had to go to the hospital we checked to make sure he was being treated fairly, spoke Rado, and seeing Shizune's dark look, reassured her They were always professional and some were even more than that. Genma continued, anyway, we couldn't have him as a student, couldn't even run missions with him as Sandaime-sama wouldn't allow it. But we did keep an eye out on his mission reports. To see how he was progressing and to make sure none of the Chunin were risking his life or trying to jam him up. When he returned from Ishval, Kakashi got to the report first and immediately went to Sandaime-sama and requested an A-rank assassination mission he'd finance himself. We were proud of the Gaki for making it but knew being the only one to survive would mess with him. And it did. He didn't really return to normal until he was on Kurenai's team and that took a couple of months. Sorry, I digressed. We'd have gone with Kakashi no problem but the Sandaime refused. Said the leader of Ishval, Ichiro Kurosawa, was now indebted to Konoha. That the man had more value alive than dead. We don't share that opinion. Not only did he lie to get that team there, he got 3 ninja killed because the greedy little bastard thought he could control 2 Kiri swordsmen. Before you got there he was warning us against any rash decisions and stated if anything were to happen to the bastard he'd hold us responsible, stated Rado. So, what is your mission? Asked Shizune frowning at the man that nearly got her surrogate brother killed. She remembered how broken Naruto looked after he was cured. Initially, only Tonton could get a positive reaction out of him but he did open up eventually. However, it was nowhere near as bubbly as he'd act now in their company. She understood why they wanted to hurt that man. We're to escort Ichiro back here, that's all we know. Genma said as the 3 reached the gate. They checked out and then took off toward Ishval at impressive speeds. Kakashi made his way to the manor, signature book in hand. He was not expecting the warmest greetings but even that lack of expectation didn't prepare him for what he received. Who are you, dickhead? Uzumaki-chan. That's not very nice. I am Hatake Kakashi and I'm here to see Naruto about a mission. Oh. Well come in, he's out back talking to him, she said as she led him to the back. Kakashi had to admit that the house lacked much of what one would expect in the home of an evil scientist bent on world domination, or whatever her aims are. He really couldn't be asked to care, honestly. The large complex did seem comfortable, almost homey. It was weird. Like finding out the QB really liked the snuggle. Tayuya, who is this? Asked a second Uzumaki, so Karen Kakashi reasoned as she carried some medical texts, if the titles were to be believed. This is Dickhead, he's here for Stump. Karen just rolled her eyes. Tayuya had to have respect beaten into her. It wasn't one of her better qualities. Karen turned toward the Junin and introduced herself and he did so in kind as the trio made it to the back to see Naruto and several clones having a furious discussion. Oi, Stump! Tayuya shouted and did well to get out of the way of the kunai aimed at her head. Overreact much, asshole. She responded, only to get flipped off as Naruto walked over to the group. Karen sighed, her cousins were weird. Sorry, Hatake-san, Tayuya isn't housebroken yet. Karen said, only to receive her own one-finger salute. Hey, guys. Naruto greeted, ignoring Tayuya's continued complaints. Hello, Naru-chan. You free for a quick, in-village C-rank mission? Sure. Kurenai-sensei gave us the day to train ourselves. What do you need me to do? Come with me, I'll explain on the way, he said and the 2 departed. Tayuya, why are you so mean to Naruto? He's sensitive about his height. Because it's funny. Besides, Tsunade-sama said to gently razz him when she's not around. Why do you call her Tsunade-sama? Karen asked in confusion. Tayuya is only that respectful to Orochimaru-sama. I don't want to talk about it. Tayuya said, color drained from her face. The 2 arrived to training ground 3 and Naruto saw the familiar smoke of a dispelled shadow clone. Why Kakashi didn't send a clone to get him, he could not imagine and apparently it was a question shared by his team. Why did you leave a clone with us, sensei? Sakura shouted. Naruto didn't remember her being that loud. He wondered when it happened. I just like him more is all. No big deal. Kakashi responded while his students and an Inuzuka puppy face faltered into the ground. Too honest, sensei, much too honest. Kiba said. Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to. Think of this as a life lesson. Now, today, Sakura, Kiba and Akamaru you'll be with me. The team was entirely too straightforward in your approach to yesterday's drill. That kind of behavior is dangerous so we'll be doing some exercises to expand your creativity in tactics. What about Sasuke-kun? He will get some tutoring in ninjutsu from Naruto here. Sasuke looked both interested and confused. You're the copy ninja, why can't you teach me ninjutsu? That's a really good question, Sasuke. See, as your Junin sensei, I teach you what I think you need to know to survive, not what you want to know. If you want additional lessons, then we have other resources. Naruto here has paid for multiple C-rank missions to receive private lessons from one of the village's experts. Didn't much help with his raten, though. Kakashi answered, smiling at Naruto near the end of his statement. Oi. When you get some free time, I want to spar. I'll show you a raten jutsu, Tobayo. I look forward to it. Now, Kiba, Sakura with me. You two, have fun. Naruto waited for the other members of Team 7 to depart before he spoke to Sasuke. Is there a body of water near here? We'll be focusing on Kaiten. Sasuke nodded and started to walk in the direction of a pond. Why Kaiten? My primary is raten and word has it you can use every element. Word has it. Tapped into the rumor mill, Sasuke-san. My Kunoiki teammate is. It's 99% annoying, but this once was approaching useful. You also didn't answer my question. Oh, that's simple. Kakashi paid for the lesson and requested I focus on your fire jutsu. Also, given what I'll be teaching you, it works better if you have a few jutsu known already. Aren't you teaching me jutsu? Sasuke asked in confusion. No. Well, maybe. Kakashi left that up to my discretion. Then what is the point of this? Naruto could hear the annoyance in his voice and sighed a little. A solo C rank isn't bad money, but he wished Sasuke could just be a little patient. It's the difference between teaching you a recipe and teaching you how to cook. Sasuke didn't hide the confusion. If I give you a recipe, you know how to do that recipe. If I teach you the individual skills that go into cooking, then you can do a lot more. Naruto's metaphor wasn't helping. Okay, let's try a different track. I can draw my sword from the side or overhead from my back, perfectly. It never catches, it is always smooth. Does that make me a master swordsman? No, of course not. Then why is it if someone can execute a single jutsu in a similar fashion repeatedly, are they a master of that jutsu? I never really thought about it. Almost no one does. I'm not going to just teach you a jutsu, I'm going to teach you an approach to jutsu so you get more out of them. One jutsu that can do 3 things is better than 3 jutsu that do 1 thing. Naruto said as the pair reached the pond. Now, I understand you favor the great fireball jutsu, right? Sasuke nodded, so he continued, how many people have you managed to actually hit with it? Not many. Sasuke admitted, reluctantly. Understandable, it's powerful for a C-rank jutsu, but unless the enemy is immobile it can be avoided. It's also pretty centralized. But what if it weren't? What do you mean? Activate your Sharingan and watch. Sasuke did just that and watched as Naruto went through the familiar hand seals. Naruto inhaled deeply, but when he started to exhale the shape of his mouth was different. His lips were slightly closed at the middle and the fire jutsu split, sending 2 medium-sized fireballs, one to the left and one to the right. That is just one simple alteration. Naruto said, only for Sasuke to smirk in satisfaction. Naruto didn't know why, but he had the urge to call the last Uchiha a bastard, but just ignored it. What neither boy realized was the presence of a third party, watching the pair with the smallest of smiles hid behind his Anbu mask. How does one forgive themselves? Is it a feeling? A place you'll only know you've reached once you've managed it? Or is it a choice? One you make once or multiple times? Kurenai didn't know this, didn't have the clearest explanation for it, so she felt like a fraud when she advised Anko to do just that, to forgive herself. Ninja live with guilt, almost all have done something that could and potentially should feel guilty about. Many hide the guilt behind quirky behavior or patriotic zeal. Some are nindo. Others just simply numb themselves, but the guilt is there, even with the skewed morals they adopt. No one process is truly superior to another, and what triggers that sense is as wide-ranging as the personalities of the ninja in Konoha's forces. But guilt is a singularly limiting emotion. Where other emotions can be put to good use, even anger and rage can be beneficial. Guilt is limiting. It isn't a sign you've learned a lesson, it's a process of continuing to obsess, harp on a wrong you've done. It can make you slower, depressed or sloppy. No one had to look further than Kakashi to see what guilt could do. Someone that should clearly be cage level is only really getting back to seriously training himself. Kurenai didn't want that for Anko, for her to languish. While not always productive, Her hatred for Orochimaru did push her to try to improve. This could cause her to backslide, and given she may be in the front lines in a few short months, there simply was no time for that. Hence, Anko needed to give herself permission to move on. Kurenai was thankful her friend could acknowledge the logic of her words, but it was clear this would be a struggle. No one wants to admit they are similar to the person they hate most in the world, as you don't want to empathize with him. It's easier if they are simple, monstrous individuals. Complexity gets in the way, and thanks to her student, she'd been getting a more and more complicated view of the once traitor and the current Hokage. She still thought Orochimaru was a monster, but in the way humans can be. The distance between her and anyone else a matter of degrees, not type. And the Sandaime wasn't the kind, wizened leader she once thought. He was still those things, but also someone that loved his own law and the glory that came with the title. Someone who could have potentially preyed upon her if circumstances had been different, only to throw her away when she became inconvenient, no longer needed for his ego. As the pictures of these people became more and more complicated, she only wished people she cared about weren't caught in the middle. Anko and Naruto most specifically, but Asuma as well. He knew Orochimaru was manipulating him, she simply wagered the reveal of the affair would outweigh that concern. Now, Asuma's relationship with the Sandaime was in tatters, all the progress they made completely undone. Anko was slipping into an emotional black hole, and Naruto. She didn't even know, except he hated the Sandaime and respected the Sannin, relying on her to get him through the upcoming trials. Nothing about this was right, nothing about it set well, but the Genjutsu mistress felt powerless to influence, let alone control any of it. She was out of her depths, getting stronger but not strong enough to ensure Naruto could face down multiple S-rank opponents. Smart but not informed enough to navigate the plots and plans Orochimaru seemed to craft with great efficacy. But what she could do is be there. Offer comfort to Anko, a sounding board to Asuma, and a way to keep Naruto connected to his teammates and possibly the village at large. She wouldn't let him be isolated just in case Orochimaru was manipulating him. It wasn't much, but she'd make the best of it. So wrapped up in her thoughts, she didn't notice Anko drift off on her shoulder as the two sat in the special Junin's bed, exhaustion finally taking her. Kurenai felt her resolve harden. She'd be here for those she cared about, and she didn't need to be a legend to do it. That's enough for today, Sasuke-san. Don't want you slipping into chakra exhaustion, Naruto said. The Uchiha had done well with finding different ways to perform his jutsu, but he could only get so far until he's done the manipulation exercises. Still, there was progress, and Naruto had performed his assigned duties. Honest day's work for honest day's pay. You have much experience with chakra exhaustion. I've never experienced it. I think I hate you a little, Sasuke admitted. Near endless chakra would be a dream come true. Yay, it's sunshine and roses. You'd cry if you had to invest as much time into chakra control as I have and still do. I don't cry. Big, sloppy, bitch boy tears. Every day. I don't know, I think he'd do the single tear to be extra dramatic and deep, Kakashi supplied as he walked toward the pair. Sasuke scowled, but there was no real heat to it. I think I should cry that a Chunin is better at instructing me than my Junin sensei. Just because Naruto works for cheap doesn't mean I don't understand my own value, Sasuke-chan. I think he just insulted us both, Naruto said with sweet drop. I did. I must have done something wrong in a past life to deserve you, Kakashi. If only Sasuke knew. Ma, I'm one of the strongest Junin in the village. You're lucky to have me. Who else would pay a prodigy to teach you in his area of expertise? I'm not a prodigy, Tobayo. Naruto responded, only to see two faces giving him the really face. What? I'm not. And the last person to call me that got his ass kicked, so beware. Anyway, it appears you're done for the day, so you are dismissed, Sasuke. Naruto, you can pick up your pay at the mission office anytime, but if you're free, I'll give you that spar you asked for. My schedule is open, Naruto answered, not hiding his excitement. A chance to test himself against an acclaimed Junin and his dad's student was quite the opportunity. It'd also be a good test. Can I stay and watch? Sure, but no Sharingan. Lifting jutsu off me is one thing, but Naruto's fall under clan techniques. Sasuke nodded, not even bothered by the stipulation. Spending a few hours with the redhead, he saw how much thought went into common jutsu. He wouldn't steal his work, it just wouldn't sit right. Each combatant got into their stance and Sasuke noticed Kakashi actually put his book away, a signal he'd be taking Naruto somewhat seriously. Both looked relaxed, content to wait for some unseen signal. Whatever it was, Naruto blurred toward Kakashi, having aimed low with a sweep kick to Kakashi's left. The copy ninja simply lifted his leg. Naruto completed his rotation and quickly sprung up to hit Kakashi in the stomach. Kakashi slapped the strike away while backing up, not allowing Naruto to negate his superior reach. While still on his back foot, Kakashi sent out a swift jab. Naruto narrowly dodged it and grabbed the offending arm. Kakashi had no interest in whatever the Uzumaki was planning and pushed him back with a front kick. Naruto sent several shuriken toward him in response, halting Kakashi's plan to press his advantage. Naruto dashed forward again. This time he sent a high kick towards Kakashi's right side, but it was easily blocked. A second kick from the same foot followed the block and Kakashi guarded against the kick strike. Naruto tried for a third attempt, having never planted his foot after the first kick, but this time he pulled the leg back slight to perform a standing side kick. The maneuver caught Kakashi off guard enough to clip him on his hip. But he was a veteran for a reason. Kakashi rolled with the strike and sent a left cross toward Naruto. The speed and distance was such that Naruto had no time to dodge and instead he took the strike. Kakashi watched as his head snapped back and the redhead fell on the ground, out cold. Knowing this wasn't right, the Junin flared his chakra, performing a ram hand seal and saying, Kai, to see he'd hit a log and Naruto was in the air coming out of a somersault. Taking a page from the Uzumaki's book, he performed a quick substitution and Naruto's feet met a log. Kakashi looked down at the rookie Chunin from atop a tree branch, smiling. He reasoned Naruto placed a very subtle genjutsu on him when he grabbed Kakashi's arm. Kakashi sent a brace of shuriken, knowing they weren't going to hit. He simply needed to distract Naruto from tracking his shunshin. The redhead didn't dodge, instead he created a 2-meter wall to intercept the projectiles. Kakashi was undeterred, appearing behind Naruto. The Uzumaki was just fast enough to get up his guard to absorb the snap kick of Kakashi, sending Naruto into his mud wall, but instead of the thud he and Sasuke were expecting, Naruto merged with the wall, coming out the other side. Naruto formed the ram seal and caused the wall to drop, then resumed his attack on Kakashi. He jumped and kicked Kakashi, who lifted his right arm to block. Naruto brought up his other foot, but Kakashi ducked the follow-up, raising when the leg passed his head and kicking Naruto away. Naruto rolled into a skid but had to hastily defend Kakashi's offensive, ducking and dodging when he could. Having had enough, Naruto formed a Rasengan which surprised Kakashi just enough for Naruto to kick him away. The power behind the blow impressed the cyclopic Junin. And here I thought I was going to have to warn you about using that against a comrade. To have the chakra to waste on using the Rasengan as a feint, it must be nice. It has its advantages. For instance, Naruto didn't finish, instead speedily performed a series of hand seals and thought wind style, gale bullets. The technique, similar to wind bullets in that compressed air is formed into a shell. However, the shell isn't as stable and this jutsu doesn't have the piercing power. In exchange, when the constructs meet resistance they unleash the stored wind chakra and a high amount of concussive force. Kakashi simply assumed it was the wind bullet and dodged them, only to be jettisoned toward the water by the gale force winds. He wasted no time performing the water style, water dragon jutsu once he landed, causing Naruto to put up another mud wall. From behind the mud wall emerged 3 Naruto clones, each moving at top speed to attack Kakashi. The Junin the charge, fending off the clones but paying attention to the real Naruto's location. He watched his sensei's son join him on the water but kept his distance, instead forming a long chain of hand seals, 22 by his estimate. Kakashi had no intention of waiting to see what was about to happen and quickly dispelled the clones with retrieved kunai and rushed toward the original. He almost made it, but Naruto finished the seal chain in time and Kakashi's charge was halted by a tentacle grabbing his left ankle. It was soon joined by 3 more, each grabbing a limb, and before Kakashi knew it he was pulled under the water. That was Naruto's strongest suit in jutsu, water style, release the Kraken jutsu. Once Naruto learned that some Kiri shinobi were able to form semi-autonomous water constructs and the Nadaime was able to form an exploding water dragon, he dedicated a far amount of clones to accomplishing the task. While he couldn't do it out of a body of water, he found forming something in water was a manageable task. It still took him 4 months to get a even quasi-workable version down, but he's improved a lot since then. He was only 10 at the time. Kakashi was both impressed and amused at the large, mythical, yellow-eyed squid that was dragging him toward the bottom of the lake. It was really quite fearsome and was putting on the squeeze as it attempted for Kakashi to take in water. Naruto was giving him a decent workout, but if he let this drag on too much longer, the Uzumaki might get the wrong message. Kakashi channeled a fair bit of Raten chakra through his body, destabilizing the jutsu, and propelled himself back to the surface. Naruto saw the Junin returned and noticed his eye was uncovered. Really? Using the Sharingan against a Chunin? Naruto asked, and Kakashi just shrugged, completely shameless in his overreaction. Naruto braced himself, knowing things were about to get a lot more difficult. This is so embarrassing. Naruto grumbled from the back of Kakashi. He'd been correct, things did become more difficult in that almost everything he tried was neutralized or countered and he got his ass handed to him. Admittedly, not that surprising as Orochimaru does it constantly as well, but at least she leaves him his dignity. And he was too tired to even fight him on it. I couldn't just leave you in the field. I might have preferred it. Besides, didn't you go a little hard on me? You could handle it. Clearly, I didn't push you hard enough if you didn't use any Fuin or Kenjutsu. Besides, you needed to learn that the little brother can't beat the big brother. Law of nature. Well, thanks for that, Nisama. Naruto said with an eye roll. Listen, Naruto. I know the old man ordered you to stay away from me. Jiraiya said as much. I don't blame you or anything. I appreciate that, but I should have done more. No sense dwelling on it now. Besides, I'm still here, though. If you're just going to beat me down and force piggyback rides on me, I might have to defect to bio. Well, it's lucky for me I'm quite the gifted tracker. Kakashi said before knocking on the door. They didn't have to wait long for the exact last person Naruto wanted to see him like this. Kakuku, long day. Naruto had never felt so lame. We had a spar and I pushed him a little hard is all. He might need some help. No, I don't, just put me down. He'd crawl, roll or do the freaking worm, but he was not letting Orochimaru carry him. Unfortunately, his body couldn't obey his command to protest vehemently and he found himself in the Sannin's grasp. He had a new appreciation for how sacks of potatoes felt. I thank you, Kakashi. No problem. Naruto, I'll be in touch. Kakashi couldn't hear his response, but it sounded a lot like ducking traitor. He departed and left Naruto with his humiliation, as a good older brother should. Orochimaru walked through the door, ignoring Naruto's assurances that he could walk. If he could move he'd have done so, but Kakashi had managed to push him near physical exhaustion. Impressive given his stamina, but Kakashi's years of experience would aid in negating that advantage. As she made her way to Naruto's temporary room, he finally said something that made her pay attention. Are you alright, Shushu? I'm fine, why do you ask? Something seemed to be bothering you this morning, but I didn't want to pry. That surprised her as he hadn't let on he suspected anything. Seeing no reason to lie, she responded. I removed Anko's cursed seal last night and stay with her. It was at the behest of Koharu, an attempt to make amends. I don't know what will come of it. Oh, maybe it'll work out and you two can reconcile. I can appreciate your optimism, but I doubt it. Could you forgive Sensei? I don't know. When I think about all he's done, I can understand a lot of it, but what hurt the most was his refusal to trust me. If he'd explained everything, we could have worked something out, but he chose not to, and when things started changing between us, when the things that should have earned his acknowledgement were essentially ignored, I had no way to understand it. I wondered if it was my fault or if he never really cared, and that's when I started to hate him. The hiding my lineage, the taking from my inheritance were betrayals, but it only added to what I was already feeling. Could he make it up to you? I can't say. If he'd admitted to everything before he was forced to, if he didn't do things to still try to save face, like telling the ninja forces the removal of the Uzumaki swirl was because the clan was becoming official within the village, then maybe. But he still values his own power and reputation too much. I believe he's sorry, but it wasn't enough to make him change, and now that he's been forced to, anything he does after that is tainted. On the other hand, I know what's like for people to hold something against me with no way to make it up. Even if I didn't know what I had done, so I wouldn't rule out ever forgiving him in the future, but I'm not there yet. Interesting. I wouldn't hold out much hope for Anko then. I don't think she's as forgiving as you, and I did something similar. Maybe, maybe not, but sometimes it only takes a really small gesture. Naruto said and was grateful Orochimaru didn't try anything weird like tucking him in, though she did seem lost in her thoughts. He did mean what he said, as angry as he was with the old man, those early years of his, the craving for absolution, he knows how heavy that weight can be. It took Bagheera a long time to convince him he truly didn't deserve it but counseled his summoner to always remember the feeling. Holding people responsible is one thing but holding grudges is something else and those lines can blur in an instant. Orochimaru had thought about Naruto's words. She very rarely cared about who she'd wronged in her life but Anko was an exception, especially when she realized how she was mimicking her own sensei. The curse seal was supposed to help her, make her stronger while taking away her memories so she couldn't be held responsible for anything she was ordered to do. That didn't pan out but maybe there was something she could do for her former student once the Am invasion was over and the Akatsuki were gone. One small gesture. What could it hurt? 3 heiresses walked through a part if the village away from the clan district. This by itself would hardly be noteworthy except all 3 were headed toward the apartment building of the Kyuubi container. That people paid attention to but none of the 3 young ladies returned the attention. Hinata, Hanabi, and Ino were headed towards Naruto's rooftop garden, one he'd been cultivating since he started at the Shinobi Academy. His team got a mission of unspecified length and several of his plants were at a delicate stage. He then handed her a seal tag and said it would grant her access to the garden and his apartment, both protected by security seals. Hinata agreed but knew very little about gardening, even with his detailed directions so she enlisted her teammate. She was somewhat surprised the Yamanaka joined in so readily until she figured it would be a chance to snoop, a little, and collect some gossip. She may have been getting better, or at least more subtle but Ino was Ino. She didn't expect the thing that drove the mind jutsu specialist wild was the presence of high-quality volcanic ash, apparently a luxury prized by every horticulturist worth her salt. Hinata suspected it was from his lava jutsu but she'd never share that little tidbit, not even after he saw fit to reveal it. It'd be difficult to explain she was observing him for a S-rank traitor because of a deal she'd made when she was 4. Besides, it was one of her fondest memories, seeing the presumed impossible and then his reaction, how he lit up so bright he rivaled the very sun. How it was made all the more impressive by how many times he failed to manage it and besides for moments of doubt, he kept going. It was inspiring, enough to allow her not to falter in her own pursuits. If anyone knew, they'd call her a traitor and likely a coward but she didn't care. It was her life and she wouldn't live it how others thought she should. But that didn't mean she'd forego all responsibilities. She wanted to make sure her little sister wouldn't be a slave to the outdated clan doctrine of the Hyuga. That she wouldn't devote herself to the Hyuga way, simply because it was expected. No. Hanabi wouldn't be arrogant and elitist like much of her clan, even many of the branch members looked down on non-Hyuga residents. They claim it is the traditions of the clan that kept it strong but the clan has flourished under the protection of Konoha. There was a reason why it was significant clan, it was the Senju and the Uchiha that changed the path of shinobi. But the Hyuga would never admit it, never tell the truth of their history. The way was the same as every other clan during the warring era, procreate a lot and hope for the best. Rigid traditions would be exploited and get you killed. If nothing else, she'd be thankful to Orochimaru for providing her alternative histories. Alternatives to a lot of things. Even if she were ordered to throw the fight against Neji it didn't matter, she was secure in her strength and her purpose. She'd only have to lend that strength to Hanabi so she wouldn't be swallowed up in hagiographies and lies or seduced into the cult of the gentle fist. If she were lucky, it'd be the lasting legacy of her rebellion and like a true shinobi, no one would ever truly know she'd been the architect. The 3 girls jumped to the roof, with Hinata helping Hanabi, and entered the garden. For a restricted space, the vegetation present was breathtaking, various colors strewn throughout. It was peaceful but gave off a feel of being nearly untamed, bordering on chaotic. It fit with the spiraling maelstrom that created it. The trio got to work, watering, pruning or even harvesting what needed to be. A crop of heirloom tomatoes, deep purple in color and quite plump, were especially ready. I bet Sasuke-kun would really like these, tomatoes are his favorite food. Ino chirped and Hinata responded non-committally, not wanting to encourage talk of the Uchiha. So, and here it came, the fishing expedition. There aren't a lot of people that know much about Naruto and I didn't think he was close to any of the rookies outside of Shikamaru and Shino, so why'd he pick you to tend to his secret garden? As I've said before, he was low on options and knew I liked flower pressing. He figured I could manage it, I knew better and that's why I asked you. But he at least trusted you somewhat, you need a seal to even get in here. I suppose he does. How'd you manage it? We talked, The story is the same, after our joint exercise we had dinner and just talked. Must have been some talk, I've tried talking to Sasuke-kun for years and it's gone nowhere. One night and you're getting keys to the apartment. Maybe I should take lessons. Stated with a shit-eating grin. What's so significant about getting keys, Nei-sama? Is suggesting Naruto likes me in a romantic sense. Does he? No. Imuoto, he doesn't. Just has an overactive imagination. That's good, besides Neji-Nizan hates him. Don't allow Neji's feelings to dictate too much to you, Hanabi-chan. He hates the rain when he gets wet, so him hating someone isn't that remarkable. Hi. In the Shimmering Leaf, one of Konoha's nicest hotels, sat Ichiro Kurosawa. A once handsome, young man, chestnut hair and a slim physique. His face was boyish, his eyes a forest green. He was 5 feet 8 inches, not incredibly tall but not short either. He'd used his looks and his position as leader of Ishval to charm many women over his 30 years of life, but that was in the past. Since that demon came to Ishval. The people called him the Crimson Tiger, but Ichiro knew, the boy wasn't a beast but something worse. He stared into the bathroom mirror, looking at himself, cursing how he'd lost it all. His chocolate brown kimono and matching sash, both made of the finest silks of his home. He once prided himself on giving off the impression he was an aristocrat, a noble of one of the major lands. A sophisticated and cunning tactician. Few of his sources of pride remained intact, however, and he couldn't help but curse his fall. At first, he'd been happy his plan to lure Kushimaru and Reiga into attacking the Leaf Ninja had worked. Those two were too busy chasing down the squad, made all the more difficult as the resistance forces were acting in concert with the Konoha ninja. All of his enemies were distracted and thinning themselves out, what could be better? Except, the demon apparently took the words of the resistance fighters to heart as they, likely, filled his head with tales of their oppression. How they worked for very little and much of the richest were hoarded by their once leader. As if they could understand the responsibilities of leadership. It required much, so it deserved equal reward. They all had enough, no one starved. Why wasn't enough satisfactory? Because they were selfish and spiteful. He wasn't soft-hearted like his father, he wasn't going to just give all of his rightful wealth away. Their selfishness unleashed that thing on him. The boy and one other were smuggled out of Ishval, but they found time to plant a trap in his office. It was only the worn floorboards of his second-story office that saved his life from the inferno that consumed it. But it wasn't unscathed, he suffered burns over 3/4 of his body. The left side of his face was now disfigured and he needed the help of a cane to walk. That was why it took them so long to arrive in Konoha. He required the aid of a carriage to transport him and his samurai. A loyal fool that took the codes of Iron Country far too seriously, but he'd be useful. Before he left, Ichiro wanted Uzumaki Naruto dead. No punishment the old Hokage could levy would deter the man, he'd already lost his position. He remembers the old man intimidating him with such ease, as if all before those aged eyes were mere ants for him to crush or spare at his whim. How he said the payments Konoha had been receiving for the last year wasn't enough to forgive what he'd done, and how a team of administrators from the Fire Country's daimyo would be here soon to help with the transfer of power. He'd be one of many voices in a land he was meant to rule. It was insulting. No, it was beyond that. It was profane. Ichiro hated the Hokage, he hated the missing nin, but more than anything, he hated the Uzumaki. If he'd only died, Ichiro wouldn't have lost everything but his revenge. Sarutobi Asuma sat in a training field trying to get lightning to arc in his hand. It had been about a month since he got a note delivered from a short-tempered panther that wasn't inclined to give his name. That he delivered said note in the middle of the night, in Asuma's bedroom with nothing having been disturbed, meant the former guardian ninja didn't sleep well. The note, from Naruto, stated if he wanted to learn the supersonic chakra flow he'd have to, at the very least, complete the first nature transformation exercise for lightning. Progress had been minimal. When one is used to using their chakra in specific ways, using them in different ways is akin to trying to write with your non-dominant hand, except you have that feeling of wrongness throughout your entire body. Asuma had just managed to give himself several chakra burns. Damn it, he near shouted, but the beautiful genjutsu mistress only giggled in response. She'd been back for 2 weeks, as her boys were sent on an additional mission to the land of tea. She'd seen Asuma struggle and could sympathize. Getting used to using elemental jutsu was incredibly difficult for her, but she pushed through and gotten both of her elements, earth and fire, back under control. It made both Junin respect the Sandaime for managing to learn and master every element. They were simply left in awe of Naruto, having beat the Sandaime's record by a decade. If I didn't know any better, I'd say the kid was trolling me. Just complete the first exercise of the competing chakra nature, that's the easy part, he wrote. From how he explained it to me, the next step really is some order of magnitude more difficult. He speculated it might be the effects of yin chakra, that we can limit ourselves by our beliefs and those beliefs get engraved in our bodies. If, on some level, you don't think this is possible, then it won't be. Ugh, he sounds like how Dad was when I was a kid. It's not easy accepting your father is both the god of shinobi who could kick your ass on his worst day and also a geek. Speaking as someone that is heavily involved in the mental arts, I'll try not to take offense. Kurenai huffed, playfully. You know I wasn't talking about you. Genjutsu is cool, hell I'm sure the brat can do some interesting things. It's hearing the thought process behind it that's geeky. Didn't he write something on the battle implications of the Shunshin? Kurenai laughed. Yes, he did. We all thought he was being a little much when he gave us a copy. See, just like Dad. Asuma said and then frowned as he tried, once again, to generate lightning. How are you and your father? Outside of work we haven't spoken. I just can't deal with him. It was Kurenai's turn to frown as she sat up and looked Asuma in the eyes. I won't try to justify what he did, but it was decades ago, and given what's on the horizon you may not have much time to resolve your issues. Asuma bit down on his unlit cigarette, a silent concession to her argument. I can't disagree with that. I also can't deal with him. He used to tell all of us about how we had to sacrifice time with him for the village, how it pained him to be away from us. My mom always defended him, to the point she sometimes strained her relationship with us. And for what? So he can do the most cliched thing a person in his position could do. So much of my life has revolved around choices Hiru's and Sarutobi made, I just had to deal with it. I came to terms with some of it, ignoring he didn't have to stay Hokage as long as he did. But this, to betray my mom when she was his champion, when she was likely missing him just as much as we were. And look at the results. Also he could feel like a big man. Then say that. I'm not saying forgive him, only don't leave things unsaid. I don't want you to regret it and have to carry it. If nothing else, at least you can avoid that. I can't make any promises. But let's change the topic. When are your brats due back? Sometime today. Kurenai said, sullenly. What's wrong? Sandaime-sama is going to finally inform Naruto of his responsibilities as a Jinchuriki during wartime. Shit. Yay. Also, the leader of Ishval, that mission that went so wrong for Naruto while he was a reservist, is still in the village, and I'm afraid Naruto may cut him down on sight. That would not be good for his profile. It wouldn't. Hopefully, after he meets with Sandaime-sama he'll just return to Orochimaru's and avoid any trouble. Kurenai said, having zero faith in her luck. Naruto-san, you've been really quiet. Shino observed as the trio ate breakfast before starting their final push into Konoha. It wouldn't take long to arrive to the village as they'd kept an impressive pace before stopping the night before. As they ate, the Aburame and Nara noticed their teammates seemed lost in thought. It wasn't unusual, but the periods of silence often resulted in something novel, so Shino was curious what could be formulating in the redhead's mind. Oh, sorry, he said, scratching the back of his head, I was just thinking, when that bastard activated the Raijin no Ken, if he'd been in a dust cloud of coal he'd have blown himself up. I was wondering if I could create a jutsu to do so. Just think, a trap jutsu against Raiten uses from the element that is weakest against it. The other two boys perked up at the thought. If he had, we'd have lost a treasure of the village, Shikamaru started, pointing to the lightning sword clipped to Naruto's waist, and then followed up with, what would be the complications? Shikamaru asked. Very few dotana performed by strictly internal manipulation. The chakra is generally directed toward the ground. But a dust cloud would be released from the mouth, I'd imagine. To try to do it from the ground would just seem too uncontrollable. Naruto started, another issue is getting the correct rock type and then into dust. Sounds troublesome. Potentially, I won't know until I start the process. Sometimes the manipulation is easier than you think it'll be. If it works, I likely won't keep it a clan technique, given our status with Kumo and the abundance of Doton uses. That would certainly endear you to many of the forces, Shino observed. For some reason, I doubt it. Naruto replied, then started breaking down camp. His squadmates only frowned slightly in acknowledgement of his words, not liking that their upbeat teammate didn't have much faith in his comrades. 3 medics and a mad scientist sit around Orochimaru's rectangular kitchen table. After Naruto's query about the poison mist jutsu, Orochimaru thought it wise to enlist the help of Tsunade and Shizune. They'd likely take a different approach than either she or Kabuto would. It didn't take long for Tsunade to conclude the original jutsu was a necrotoxin, meant to cause rapid and expansive cellular death. The challenge was to adapt that to other types. It seemed all were energized by this new puzzle. Orochimaru had managed to create a myotoxin, one mimicking some of her summons. She could even control if it simply paralyzed or was eventually fatal. Tsunade and Shizune were able to create a neurotoxin variant. The meeting was to decide where else to take their project and who they'd teach, if any, these new techniques. While all the women were enthused with their progress, Kabuto quietly fumed that the inspiration for this was Naruto, someone he was convinced was in need of promote removal. He hated how his mistress wouldn't even consider using live subjects to test her new jutsu. She claimed it was not worth the risk as they were still being watched, but he suspected it was because her newest student wouldn't approve. As if his opinion mattered in the slightest. Kabuto-kun, would you like to join us? Sorry, Orochimaru-sama, the former spy said, adjusting his glasses as he did, which did not go unnoticed. As I was saying, these aren't like elemental ninjutsu. Having a high degree of scientific knowledge is necessary to properly form the jutsu. That really only leaves Ichiro Nin to learn them. Anko would have sufficient knowledge, she deals with poisons and I trained her well in the sciences. Anko-san may be ideal. Unfortunately, from what Tsunade-sama and I have witnessed, we have a lot of medics but virtually no combat medics in the regular forces. I'd hesitate teaching a non-combatant these and I can't estimate how long it'd take them to get back up to par. Shizune stated before taking a sip of tea from the floral patterned cup. Agreed, Tsunade said, annoyed. We've got a new crop, from Chunin to Genin, but they are still learning the basics to be rank jutsu that could harm them if not performed correctly. I just can't see it. What about you? She asked the snake Sannin. Mine roughly mimic the venom of my summons, so having a close bond with the snakes would make it easier. I'll pass on a scroll to Anko as I doubt she'd welcome my presence. But as for your versions, Karen would be able to manage it. She's no Genin, I assure you of that. I'll consider it, it'd be nice to share something with my cousin clan. So, what's next? Shape manipulation. Orochimaru said and then laughed when all 3 medics hung their heads. It's a truism, but medics are complete and total crap at advanced shape manipulation. I'll get Naruto-kun to contribute if neither of you mind. Great, he'll have a 6-headed poison bird flying around in no time. Kabuto muttered absent-mindedly, causing Orochimaru to put eyes on him. Tsunade quirked her brow and Shizune frowned in response. Sounds like someone is jealous of your new student. What's wrong, brat? Sensei not giving you enough personal attention? Tsunade teased. Kabuto would normally glare at someone that mocked him, but he liked having his head attached to his body, so he decided to play along. I'll admit, it is difficult not to feel inadequate around Naruto-kun. To be so gifted at such an age. Kikuku, fret not, Kabuto-kun. Your talents may lie elsewhere, but they are considerable. The foursome finished their meeting and the slug Sannin departed with her student. While she had placated him then, Orochimaru had no intention of doing so now that they were alone. We clearly need to talk, Kabuto-kun. About what, Orochimaru-sama? The question earned him the kusanagi to his throat. Have you grown so arrogant as to think you can play dumb with me, boy? The white snake asked, pressing the blade just hard enough it wouldn't draw blood. Kabuto did a small shake of his head and she withdrew her sword. Now, what is your problem? The medic knew he couldn't say what he really wanted to, that the red-haired Uzumaki was dulling her blade. That he was a bad influence on her, changing her in small but noticeable ways, and he hated it. That he missed twisting lower life forms as they laid, helpless, on a cold steel table. Then an idea struck him. I feel restless, Orochimaru-sama. When I was a double agent there was at least the risk of that, as well as being able to do our work. But now, I'm a genin. The Sandaime isn't going to promote me in retaliation for being a spy, the only thing that saves me is your pardon. I need something to do, I'm going stir crazy. I'm sorry. Kikuku, I can relate. I detest when things stagnate. I'll see if I can arrange a mission for you, something nice and bloody. How's that sound? Like just what I need, Orochimaru-sama. I'll set it up, but don't you have a shift at the hospital? Yes, I do. I'll leave now, Kabuto stated and vacated the manor. Orochimaru wasted no time summon a snake, a puff adder that was brown with specks of black. Orochimaru looked down the small snake and relayed her orders. Go to Guren-chan, tell her I believe Kabuto may be planning to betray me. Tell her to make the necessary preparations and wait for confirmation. The snake dispelled itself and she continued to sit at her table, now deep in thought. Kabuto would be recognized as her second in command by most, but truthfully, she's never trusted the spy. He worked for someone attempting to kill her and his greatest skill is his duplicity. But he believed he was her most trusted, most relied on subordinate. Kabuto likely believes he knows more about her plans and her network than anyone else. He knows a tiny fraction and she had kept track of how much he knew, so if he ever turned on her, all of his information could be rendered moot as she burned those segments. Only Kimimaro and Guren had her full faith as far as subordinates went, and both had the good sense to never be jealous of Naruto. He was different and meant for more. Kabuto had seemingly forgotten this or just disliked it enough to consider rebelling. It was a shame, he was a talented medic and researcher. He hadn't maximized his potential, but if he were committed to betraying her, then Kabuto would meet a slow and painful end. His ability to self-heal would only prolong his suffering. Her only true concern was that Kabuto wouldn't target herself but Naruto. She'd simply watch and wait, as this might just be adolescent petulance. A samurai, trained in Iron Country by the famed Ito, Iron Wolf, Watanabe, sat just inside the check-in gate of Konoha. He'd do this periodically, waiting for his target, and it seemed his steadfastness and patience had finally paid off. 3 preteens were at the gate and he could finally complete the task given to him by his new lord. One of the boys had horrible posture for an alleged warrior and looked incredibly lazy. Another, covered up in a large jacket with his eyes guarded by darkened glasses, just seemed to want to fade into the background. But it was the last one, the short one in a flak jacket similar to the lazy boy, except he had a sword strapped to his back. Red hair down to his shoulders and 3 whisker marks on each cheek. This was the alleged fearsome warrior that had caused such damage. It was somewhat hard to believe, but as a trained samurai he knew ninja could do some truly incredible things. Nothing a true samurai had to worry about. Like many of the initiates of Iron Country, he believed shinobi could not stand up to them in direct combat but only win through disreputable and honorless methods. That's why he planned to challenge the boy directly. A part of him distressed at killing one so young. The boy had chosen his path and must walk it to its very end. He put his hand on the hilt of his sword, preparing to walk toward the so-called tiger, but the boy disappeared in a blur, leaving only his teammates to come through the gate. He approached the 2 boys, his back straight, his gait smooth but purposeful. He would always display his pride as a swordsman, a warrior, and would use it to intimidate the 2 youngsters. "Excuse me, may I have a word?" he asked, his face emotionless. "Regarding what?" the covered-up boy asked. That boy that just departed, was he Uzumaki Naruto? Without missing a beat, the lazy boy asked, "Troublesome, why do you want to know?" "We have a private matter to settle and it cannot be delayed," he said, grip tightening on his sword. The boys made a face. He assumed they would debate whether or not to tell him. Konoha shinobi don't give information about their comrades to strangers. If you want to meet Uzumaki Naruto, you should go to the Hokage so he can set it up. The lazy boy said. "I may not be able to get a meeting with your leader, and this is time sensitive. If that was Naruto-san, you'd do well to tell me now so I can be on my way." "Forgive me, but that sounded like a threat. Are you threatening us, Samurai-san?" The other boy, he'd almost forgot was there, asked. Now, he was receiving the attention of others and realized it was in his interest not to press things further. "If you know Naruto-san, please have him meet me at the Shimmering Leaf. It would be appreciated." And the swordsman walked away. "He never did give us a name," Shino observed. "Troublesome, we better report this," Shikamaru said before a weasel-masked Anbu appeared before them. "It is already known, Nara-san." You may go about your day, he said dryly and shunted away. Troublesome. Shino, that's my line. Naruto entered the Hokage's office with an impassive face, the one he always adopted when dealing with the old man. He was surprised to see his advisors and Tsunade in attendance. It, he reasoned, explained why he was requested to report directly to the Hokage alone. He stepped forward and greeted the Hokage formally. The man didn't visibly react, but it still hurt that his bond with Naruto was gone. However, they had more important matters and it'd be another indictment on his foolishness. Thank you for getting here so promptly, Naruto-kun. As you can surmise, I didn't call you here for a debriefing on a standard C rank. Instead, I am here to inform you of some important information. Naruto kept his impassive facade but internally wondered what could be so important to him specifically. The Hokage, after taking a moment, continued, as you know, soon we will be in a state of war, officially. When that happens, you as a Jinchuriki will no longer be in the traditional chain of command. All hidden villages do this, we just don't let it be known who our Jinchuriki are. In fact, until it is declared the war has ended, you'd be under the direct command of the sitting Hokage. Your status, Naruto, would be equal to the Junin and Anbu commanders, Homura added. During the Third Shinobi War, your mother was not on the battlefield for long, instead she was in charge of domestic security. Her Fuinjutsu knowledge and talent with barriers made her ideal for keeping Konoha safe from any parties trying to attack us directly. Most of the shinobi forces that knew her were too afraid to contradict her and none questioned her status when Hiruzen gave the order. Koharu stated. We haven't decided what your overall status would be, but I am leaning towards Chunin Commander. You should start studying strategy and tactics in case. You should also keep in mind, there will be pushback but you'll have to find a way to navigate it. Hiruzen finished and the Uzumaki lost his face, feeling overwhelmed but more so angry. If only I'd been a Chunin for longer than 5 minutes. How do you expect the largest section of the shinobi forces to listen to a 12-year-old that just got promoted? Naruto asked, seethingly. I know this isn't ideal, Naruto-kun, but it is what must be done. We'll be firming up our plans for the invasion and relaying it all to you soon. Now, if there isn't anything pressing you need to share, you are dismissed. Naruto unhooked something from his back and turned toward Tsunade, who'd been quiet this entire time as her voice was already hoarse with rage. I retrieved the Raijin no Ken, here you go Oba-chan, Naruto said, throwing the hilt to the slug Sannin and departing before any questions could be asked. He also missed the fond smile Tsunade, Koharu, and Homura had of the lost Senju treasure and reminder of their family and sensei respectively. It was short-lived. He's not ready for this, Tsunade said, raspily. He has no choice but to be. People are guaranteed to die, you're going to put the responsibility on him with no previous command experience. Once again, this is what is needed, Tsunade. Whatever scheme we go with, Kurenai won't be there. I can't run the risk of someone intentionally putting him in harm's way. And this will show the others that he isn't some monster but truly one of them. Conversely, Naruto will see he isn't as detested as he thinks he is. I know it's my fault I've allowed that impression to continue, but he'll see. Some are hesitant because he is so capable with minimal training from us and Orochimaru's interest, but I believe he'll sit in this chair one day. The path starts now. Your machinations of late have left a lot to be desired, but on this, I agree. Naruto thinks only a handful of people see him for who he is, some more simply tolerate him. That belief cannot continue. He needs to see that his comrades are not bigots or potential enemies. That he can depend on them and they will acknowledge his value. There aren't many ways to do that, this invasion offers an opportunity. Koharu supplied, surprising all in attendance. Then why not start preparing him sooner? Tsunade asked. He needed to increase his combat effectiveness to that of a respectable Junin. From the reports I've seen, he's reached that level and that's without the Kyuubi chakra. So, what? You think he's an S-class ninja? Tsunade asked sarcastically. No, don't be foolish. But I do believe, with adequate information and time to plan, he can kill one. The Iron Country trained samurai cursed missing his target. He returned to his lord, only to be admonished for not considering the boy was going to report to the Hokage. It made sense, so he left the hotel immediately, his destination the Hokage Tower. He never made it, having seen the Uzumaki out and about. Deciding to do a little research, as the residents had been incredibly tight-lipped about anything retarding the boy. The samurai assumed it was because he wasn't a resident and as such they didn't trust him. He stalked the Uzumaki, watching the boy purchase various fruits from a stand. The interaction was stilted between the operator and the ninja, both appearing to tolerate each other and no more. He then watched as the boy entered a convenience store and exited with bottles of water, storing them in a scroll, along with the fruit before darting off. It was difficult to keep up without alerting the younger male, but the samurai managed it. He followed the Uzumaki onto a field, a likely training area that was inhabited by a copy of the redhead and 3 children. The children, 2 boys and a girl, were shins deep in a small pond going through hand-to-hand forms while the copy of the Uzumaki looked on. The one he'd followed handed the other the scroll and then disappeared in a puff of smoke. The samurai hid behind a tree and watched the kids train, and complain about the exercise. "Boss, why do we have to do this?" Konohamaru asked. "It'll increase your speed and has none of the drawbacks of weights or resistance seals. This is how I trained when I was your age and I certainly didn't have anyone around to make me a freaking pond, yar ingrates. That was cool but my sandals are wet and it feels weird." Mogi chimed it. "No one told you to wear your sandals." Naruto shot back. "But I didn't want muddy feet. I made the bottom stone." That was met with a round of O's from the academy students. Soon the children switched to weapons training before the Uzumaki called the training session to a close and gave them the fruit and water. The samurai watched as the alleged demon chatted and joked with the kids before sending them on their way. The Uzumaki then whistled a tune before speaking. "You can come out now." That shocked the samurai. He thought he'd gone undetected, but it was clear he was wrong. He walked purposefully, his navy blue kasode and matching hakama swaying in the wind. His katana strapped to his side, held in place by a white obi. The sword itself, very basic with a black cord wrapping, a standard tsuba and a black scabbard. He stopped just 3 meters shy of his target. Perfect distance for a speedy blade draw. 1 cut, 1 kill and it'd all be over. "I am here on behalf of my lord, Kurosawa Ichiro-sama." He started and saw a flash of rage appear in the boy's eyes, the blue seeming colder now. "He's alive. And he sent you here all the way from Ishval, told you to infiltrate a shinobi village with the goal of assassinating one of its ninja?" He asked in disbelief. "No. I accompanied my lord here. I infiltrated nothing." "Where is he?" The samurai was taken aback by the clipped, demanding tone. "At the Shimmering Leaf, room 334. Not that it matters, I was ordered to cut you down and I will. Prepare yourself." Before he could even get in his stance, the samurai was violently toppled, being shoved into the ground and having a wave of chakra flood his system. He could turn his head to see a masked individual holding the Uzumaki back, single-handedly. The Uzumaki, having had his blade drawn and in a perfect position to stab him in the neck, had he not been saved. The Uzumaki was pushed back and made no attempt to attack again. The masked man buried his knee into the samurai, causing the man to grunt in discomfort. "What you did is not only illegal but very foolish, Samurai-san. Please don't think I saved you, as where you're going will be much worse than the swift death you were about to receive." "How?" "He placed you under an illusion before you ever said a word to him. When I whistled, courtesy of a fellow clansperson. Though it wouldn't have fooled a shinobi, Naruto-kun. It needs more work. Everybody's a critic. Well, what do we do now? You dispel and let the original know Ichiro-san is being guarded so you won't be able to reach him." "We'll see," the shadow clone said before dissolving into a cloud of smoke. "I wasn't even facing the real one." The Anbu agent didn't respond, only tying up the swordsman and preparing him for transport to T&I. The real Naruto received the information, but it almost didn't register, as he was awash in painful feelings and memories. Kyo taking the brunt of the explosion on the bridge, being dead before he hit the water. Riku, buried to her neck, her face a vision of pain and sorrow as Reiga gloated over her corpse. Her death hurting all the more because it was Naruto's suggestion they split up for the day. Yagami barely having enough strength to drag them onto the small ship, often delirious before he made it to Tsunade and Shizune. The last he remembered of the man was a brief smile and a thanks. He slipped away while Naruto was blackouted. There was virtually no one Naruto hated. He'd been able to come to terms with his ostracization thanks to Bagheera, and while he disliked the villagers, he didn't hate them and left himself open to change if they did. He hated the old man, but that stemmed from his great sense of disappointment, betrayal, and the still nagging desire to be truly acknowledged by the one he once considered family. But Kurosawa Ichiro was a monster. He had enough and wanted more because having more than all those around him made him feel superior. He was a beast in fancy clothes. A cruel, vain, stupid fuck-up that got dozens of people killed. Naruto knew it was a high percentage of luck that allowed him to survive Ishval, and it had taken him months to deal with the guilt of being the only one to return. One source of solace having been the assumed death of the bastard that started it all, but he wasn't dead. And for all Naruto knew, he went on to become even worse. That thought made him push himself even harder as he ran across the rooftops in blinding speed. He didn't stop until he was a few buildings away from the hotel. It did to him no good to just charge in, especially if the man was guarded. He stopped, taking calming breaths. His emotions were all over the place, and that'd leave him open to a mistake. He'd beaten or held off superior opponents because they were sloppy and overconfident. He could never let that be him. He looked around and couldn't pin where the protection detail may be, at least on the exterior of the building. A use of shadow clones and henges could possibly get him close, but if only if he got in undetected. Tiring of the internal debate, Naruto selected his plan and was about to make his way to the hotel lobby until he felt the disturbance of an incoming shunshin and then a hand on his shoulder. The person that stopped him had a bandana hitai, a junin vest and a senbon in his mouth. Genma Shiranui, one of the members of his father's protection detail. One trusted enough to learn a modified version of the Hiraishin. Naruto met the special junin's eyes, awaiting for him to speak first. Genma, however, was slightly taken aback. He'd seen those eyes before. After Obito, after Rin. The look of determination, and the promise of a reckoning. Genma hoped the kid didn't have his mother's temper and could be reasoned with. Kid, I know why you're here and I understand, but I can't allow you to do this. Just turn around and go about your day. Why is he even here? He got 3 of our ninja killed, he should be in a cell, not a suite. That is above my pay grade. I just know Sandaime-sama ordered me to protect him until instructed otherwise. Of fucking course, Naruto said, clenching his fist. That old man was running one of his games again instead of just nipping the problem in the bud. Give the Sandaime a break. Trust me, there is more going on than we know, but that guy has not been living in luxury laughing at our losses. Naruto didn't respond. Questionable leadership accounted for, the old man does care about most of his forces. Naruto couldn't deny that fact with a straight face. We okay here? Another junin asked from behind. We're fine, Rado. Right, Naruto. Yay, we're fantastic. Good, good, Rado said in response. What about the package? Asked Genma. In his room, acting antsy. What Rado didn't know was that Ichiro was overflowing with participation, and when he heard his security detail start shifting, he figured the first part of his plan had commenced. He only needed to get ready so he could confront the monster that ruined his life. He was finishing getting dressed, having managed to put a heavy vest over his kimono. It caused him great pain, but it'd be worth it. Ichiro left his room, his guards too focused on the outside threat to pay attention to him. His steps were slow, he foregoing his cane, for his showdown. He wouldn't demonstrate 1 ounce of weakness. He'd restore his pride and have his revenge. The thoughts of his victory dulled the pain he was feeling. Moments later he made it to the door at the lobby and took a deep breath before grasping a remote trigger connected to his vest, pressing down on a red button. Uzumaki, he yelled. I know you're here, Uzumaki. Come meet me, coward. He was immediately surrounded by an Anbu team. This vest has enough explosives to level several buildings. If you touch me, I'll release the trigger. Where is Uzumaki? Naruto, Genma and Rado shunshined in front of the man, about 3.5 meters back. Ichiro cackled in glee when he saw the red-haired boy standing before him. All foot traffic in the vicinity of the man's shrieks stopped, seeing a heavily disfigured person shouting for that boy. I see that idiot samurai got you here. Did you kill him, demon? Ichiro watched as Naruto refused to respond. Answer your betters, boy. Did you kill him like you tried to kill me? Like a coward. Answer me or I'll let go of this trigger, I'm not playing. I'm sorry, did you say something? Naruto said, and all attending shinobi sweet dropped. Am I some kind of joke to you, you little monster? Am I? Look at what you did to me. You disfigured and crippled me, and all for that trash that didn't know its place. You're alive, You should have been thankful for that. Thankful. Your Hokage has taken everything from me, everything my family built, and it's all your fault. You should have died like the rest of those fodder ninja like I planned. Everyone felt a brief flash of killing intent, it disappearing as fast as it emerged. Those ninja had more guts, character and worth than if you'd managed to live 100 lifetimes. You. Wrong. All of you are only good for following the orders of your betters. That stupid samurai was the same. Just obedient dogs for your masters. If not for uppity ninja, I'd still be whole. This is all your fault. All involved were starting to tire of the man and his rantings. The problem was, while the Anbu knew containment jutsu, they weren't designed to contain explosions. Certainly not ones powerful enough to level several buildings. Attempts to sever the hand might cause the pressure to lighten off the button, and genjutsu may be negated given the signs of agony that were seen in his body language. It's pretty clear he wants to kill Naruto, and there is no way they could allow that to happen. Not only because of his Jinchuriki status but due to the interests of each of the Sannin and the Sandaime, each of the Anbu in attendance shuddered to think what would happen if the Uzumaki died to a civilian nutjob. Naruto, too, was aware things were escalating rapidly and something needed to be done. He was fortunate that he'd been preparing for a mad bomber and had developed a few jutsu to deal with explosions. He performed 5 hand seals: dragon right pointing arrow, sheep right pointing arrow, monkey right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, snake and thought water style, great gummy sphere. The sphere of multi-textured liquid rapidly approached Ichiro and engulfed him before he could move. The Anbu had managed to get out of the way. He was shocked to be suspended in a gel-like prison, and while he could move somewhat he couldn't exit out of the construct. He stared at the Uzumaki, shocked and irate. He couldn't believe his guaranteed victory was slipping away from him. He took a look at his cage. It had roughly a 6-meter diameter. He was confident it couldn't quell the explosion, and he'd likely take some of the villagers with him. Even if the Uzumaki got away, he'd be blamed for it. Without a second thought, he released the button and died at the epicenter of the blast. If he could have somehow seen his attempt, he'd have shrieked in displeasure, as the gel did contain the blast and the lack of sufficient oxygen for a fire to ignite. The Anbu had taken precautions and created mud walls when they witnessed the man release the trigger, and while they budged, they were not breached. More squads of Anbu showed up with the Sandaime and Tsunade in tow. As the Black Ops got the villages under control, the Sandaime decided to question the special Junin on the scene. Genma, Rado, what happened? A 5-foot loon with a death wish, sir. Genma snarked but saw it was not received well by the aged Hokage. Ichiro-san had an alleged massive bomb with a remote trigger, a deadman switch at that, and he threatened to use it here. Why? Chunin Uzumaki arrived and are shifting to confront him must have alerted Ichiro. He then made his way out here and, boom. Why was Naruto-kun even here? How did he know to come here? The samurai following Ichiro-san. Apparently, he was given orders to attack Uzumaki-san. His attack was thwarted by an agent on the scene, but the Naruto he stopped was a shadow clone. He alerted us that Uzumaki-san was headed straight here, Hokage-sama, replied Kat. And you two stopped him from infiltrating the hotel, leaving your charge unprotected. We didn't think we had to protect him from himself, Hokage-sama. That was beyond our mandate. Rado said in Genma and his mutual defense. The Hokage reluctantly accepted the explanation. So, you stopped Naruto-kun from getting to him. I'm assuming he didn't fight you. No, Hokage-sama, Booth Special Junin replied. But Ichiro-san emerges from the hotel, an explosive strapped to him. What did he want? Payback on the kid for the impromptu makeover. Guess he didn't feel as pretty as he once did. Genma quipped. And how was it resolved? Clearly he triggered the explosive, but what contained it? 4 mud walls would not a massive bomb. The kid had some water jutsu. Well, it looked like a water jutsu, but I'd never seen it before. Suspended Ichiro in it, and the man assumed it wouldn't be enough to prevent extensive damage. He was wrong. The Sandaime took the information in stride, cataloging all useful tidbits. Truthfully, Ichiro wasn't going to make it back to Ishville anyway. The delay was to cement the transfer of power before he ran into some bad luck on his way back. As such, there was no major loss as far as that goes. No property damage either. I'll have to count this as a failure in your mission's records. I hope you realize that. The Junin shrugged, neither minded, and Hiruzen couldn't blame them. Where is Naruto-kun? I don't know. Rado answered, and Genma shrugged again. Don't worry about it, I'll send someone to find him. You're both dismissed. Hiruzen said, and both Junin departed without a moment's pause. Hiruzen looked to see his Anbu calming the people down. He even saw Tsunade talking to some of the villagers, something that surprised him. She wasn't all that sociable to most people. He saw her finish up her conversation and return to him. She met her sensei's eyes and picked up on the unasked question. I was just curious what they were saying about the incident. Oh, and what did they say? That some mentally disturbed person essentially tried to hold them all hostage but was stopped by Naruto. Some even wondered if that's how they sounded, paranoid and cowardly, for being so scared of a 12-year-old. That's good. That's a biased sample. No one who thought poorly of Naruto was going to say it to me unless they wanted to swallow their teeth. Good point, Tsunade-chan. Let's return to my office, paywork awaits. Oh joy, she said sarcastically but followed nonetheless. As the day turned into the night, the uproar of near bombing had turned into quiet rumor-mongering. Those brave souls in attendance with the power of hindsight and liquid courage spoke about their harrowing encounter. Naruto Uzumaki was on the lips of many, but the heir of the Uzumaki clan was none the wiser as he sat in his retreat, Majila sleeping peacefully in his lap. He was left with his thoughts and her soft snores as he stroked her back gently. A presence made itself known as she entered his rooftop garden, but she remained quiet, taking a seat next to Naruto. She looked around at his collection of plants, impressed at the diversity and the overall health. It was calming, peaceful in a way not much in their world was, and she understood why he'd come here to be alone. The silence was comfortable, the two at ease with each other as if they'd known each other for years. As serene as the silence was, she came here for a point and initiated speaking. I heard you had something of a rough day. You could say that. Want to talk about it? I don't even know where to begin. Oh, I fall outside of the normal command structure during wartime, so that's awesome. I may be made Chunin commander, as if that's not laughable. Why would that be laughable? I've just been promoted, sensei. Also, I'm that kid. No one is going to want to listen to me and will think I've gotten the position through favoritism or something. Oh, and this little conflict I'd be leading people into only exists because a collection of overpowered psychos want to ripe the QB from my gut, and it is guaranteed some if not many of us will die. And if that wasn't enough, that gutless tyrant had been alive this entire time and could have done God knows what in retaliation for me trying to kill him. You got that all out of your system? Kurenai asked. I'm not throwing a temper tantrum, it's all true. No, you perceive it as true. Sometimes I forget you're still 12. Only for a few more months. Naruto muttered, but Kurenai ignored him. I'll concede, you being put in a leadership position given all that has happened isn't ideal, and it is something the Sandaime should have considered while holding you back. No one wants war, but there have been tensions between the 5 great villages since the end of the last war. But this is partially for your protection. He can't have you assigned to a foolish risk. It isn't pleasant to think about, but your value is greater than almost any other single shinobi because you protect us all. As far as the prejudice of the shinobi corps, it isn't as widespread as you think it is, at least not anymore. There was a time many of us were cautious or afraid. Some have experienced the power of a Jinchuriki, many have felt the power of the Kyubi, so leaving the control and containment to a child was not easy to accept. But eventually the fear passed and shame was left. You hadn't done anything, but many avoided you anyway, even knowing you provide a vital service, and some continued to avoid you out of that shame. Those who didn't could see you were a very sweet boy that was dealt a bad hand. You may never get a collective apology for how we treated or allowed you to be treated, but many have long come to see you as your own person and our comrade. The Akatsuki goals are of their own choosing and they are a threat. To say you're somehow responsible is stupid, and you know better, so I won't waste any more time on it. And as for this Ichiro person, I know you hate him. Even with him dead you still likely hate him, but you need to let it go. I can't. Why not? Because he made the lives of his people worse for no other reason than it benefited him. He had the power to change things and he didn't, he just watched them suffer and did nothing. People like that, I hate. Must have felt good to strike out at him in Ishval, huh? I guess. And today, you foiled his plans and watched as his scheme was his undoing. That was nice, right? Not really, Naruto said, shaking his head. Oh, why do you think that is? Because revenge is empty and doesn't change anything. Maybe. I've seen people lose themselves to revenge, and I've seen others get it and it helped resolve their issues. If it isn't an obsession, a little revenge is fine, I think. But you didn't get revenge. So then why did it feel empty? Naruto asked, looking at the red-eyed woman. I think you could slay every person like this Ichiro person in the elemental nations and it wouldn't matter. Why? Because the person you're really angry at, the one you really want to hurt, is the Sandaime. You see his worst qualities in people like Ichiro. Those who use their power solely for their benefit and watch their subordinates suffer. Like he did with you. I think there is a part of you so angry at him that if you hadn't suppressed it you'd be blinded with rage and hurt. But people like him, when out of missions, you can stop them. You aren't powerless nor are you subjected to their rule. I already know I hate the old man. Yes, but you always sound divorced from it. You know the emotion is there but you've walled it off. That's not good, Naruto. It means you can never really get past everything, you'll only think you have until something taps into that latent hatred. Naruto chuckles. Orochimaru Shishu asked me if I could forgive him the night before we left. What did you say? That I didn't know, if things had been different then maybe. I guess I was lying. No, it just means you're as complex as everyone else. I'll tell you like I told Asuma, you don't need to forgive the Sandaime to resolve things with him, but as long as you carry around that hatred and that hurt it'll be an invisible weight on you. I'm not sure I know how to resolve things with him. I've gotten all I need from him. Really? Kurenai asked, voice laced with skepticism. Because I believe if you think really, really hard there is one question at the center of this, one answer you don't have. The Genjutsu mistress finished and then departed, after ruffling Naruto's hair. The Uzumaki would spend the rest of the night in his garden, thinking about his sensei's words and so much else. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.